Hey guys, welcome to another special edition of Tech Talk. I'm your host, Jeff Hutzell with Automax. As you can see, we're a little different setup today. Like most of you, we are working from home and making that adjustment to everything that's happening now with the crisis we're in. But with the show still goes on, and we're welcomed today by Stephen McElwee. Stephen is with Matrix Global Resources. Stephen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, so Stephen, for those of folks that may not be familiar with Matrix, maybe start and just tell us a little bit about the company.
Sure. So Matrix Global Services is it's a fairly large global company. It's publicly traded on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, and namely we provide IT services in the form of custom development work, IT services, tech support, DevOps, all of sort of the typical silos that you would come to expect from a large IT services provider. Our staff is quite well-rounded, and we have folks everywhere from on the front lines right now to at home continuing their development tasks.
Yeah, Stephen. So I'm curious. Obviously, these are new times and kind of new ground for everybody right now that we're facing. What's it been like for you guys at Matrix over the past couple of weeks as you kind of had to make this transition to having people work remote and those that are continuing to still be out in the field?
Sure. So our staff that sort of provides client services that are along the lines or within the nature of development work or something that lends itself to being a remote employee. We have been at home for about 2.5 weeks now. Now, obviously, that's required some infrastructure upgrades, some real hard look sort of at our accounts and what technologies we're using to support the global workforce, code repositories, all of these things to sort of get everything in line so that we can seamlessly transition to work from home and then seamlessly transition to back into the office. Now, some of the challenges that we've faced thus far is that we do have staff that support our healthcare clients out there on the front lines, and those guys have had to really learn to triage issues, fix the ones they can remotely, and kind of go on site as a last resort.
Yeah, and what's that experience been like for those guys today? Is that they find that trying? I know a lot of the hospitals are actually limiting access to outside kind of third-party providers and contractors. You mentioned trying to do that work remotely. Are you finding that to be still effective, or with some people we're talking to, they're actually getting more done now because there's not as many distractions with being remote? How has that been for Matrix?
Sure. I would say we certainly have found that the folks that are working from home we've seen obviously a little bit of an uptick in productivity because there's not really those congregations at the water cooler or, folks are kind of working earlier in the morning when they wake up, they're onto their email or they're checking what their issues are. There's no commute involved. So we're sort of gathering all of that time back. And honestly, senior leadership and those that have been around for a while that maybe had been, not as open to sort of the remote work plan are really coming around as we see that increase in productivity, and the staff obviously feels more comfortable working remotely than having to maybe brave going out there and fixing something on site if obviously they can avoid being in that situation. So for us, it's been really, really good, and we are a global workforce. So to some degree, we had a distributed workforce prior to this, but we've really been able to hone our skills and ability to provide top level service while still, adding the remote component and keeping everybody safe and at home. And some of the policies and procedures that we've developed through this time will certainly carry on into the future when things hopefully return to normal.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. You guys have been on the forefront of moving a lot of your services out to the cloud and your infrastructure. You guys have mentioned to enable people to work remotely, but there has always been kind of that old school feeling of managers that really want their team. I want to be able to see them in person, know that they're working hard and doing those things. As we kind of go through this pandemic and this change in working, do you think as this tapers off and we get back to business as usual, will that model stay? Do you think people will kind of have their eyes opened a little bit, or do you think it'll kind of go back to how things had always been done?
Yeah, I had a conversation the other day, Jeff, and it was kind of funny. And we said, is this the death of the sick day, right? Is showing how effective this can be How much is that really going to impact our folks moving forward if they're just feeling a little bit under the weather, or it snows, or any of these other things, all the way down to our kids that are in school? I mean, this could be very well be the death of the snow day for all of our children. So we're kind of learning a new way to go about standard tasks and looking at things differently, and it's really just blossomed into this thing. So for us at Matrix Global Services, I think some of the principles that we've learned and some of the things that we've gone ahead and done will continue to come over and stay long after, as we sort of support our workforce and give more of a flexible working option and sort of provide it as part of a benefit. Now that we see that we can be equally as effective with some of that distributed and remote work as we can as on premise.
Yeah, I think you've got kids everywhere right now with tears in their eyes welling up as you talk about taking away snow days. But I think it's definitely true. I think it wouldn't shock me if we make 5 years worth of progress in a month with just getting people to learn how to use the tools to be able to work remote. And some of those productivity and collaboration tools that have been out there for a long. They've been out there for a long time now, but IT does a lot of trainings on these things and tells people what's available. But for people to really embrace it and adopt it, video conferencing is a great example of that. I think. I mean, all you hear about today is Zoom and these other video conference services that are now, people are starting to get used to them, and the shyness factor seems to be going away a little bit, and it's kind of opening up a whole new world of possibilities for folks, I think.
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of competition for remote work when this all clears as well, right? For those folks that are enjoying the change and kind of being at home. And in our case, as we see a lot of our clients, we'll use an example as like a physical therapy clinic that is sort of their basic business model that we have always supported was, the client comes into the PT clinic and the client works. And then now we see that, telehealth is an option, and the person is kind of doing body weight exercises over the camera, and some physical therapists that have more difficult schedules say, hey, this actually does work, and we need to develop CPT codes. I mean, there's a lot of work that comes behind it, but ultimately speaking, I think you will see sort of a swell in really understanding what jobs lend themselves to working remote, and seeing an increase in the folks that would like to do it from the comfort of their home or home office or whatever.
Yeah. And last question I have for you. I know I had a conversation with a CIO friend of mine yesterday. He talked about this as actually being an opportunity for their company, for all these projects that have been on the back burner, and it's like they may have been getting pushed back because they're taking care of so much of the day-to-day minutia. Now that they're remote, there's less distractions. They're actually seeing it as an opportunity to get new projects done and get new work done. Are you guys seeing that or hearing that, where folks are starting to kind of take advantage of this time they have remote?
Sure. So at Matrix, obviously, we manage with almost 10,000 employees globally. We manage a large workforce and a large, deep list of projects that are kind of hanging out there that range from our own internal support projects to obviously projects that we're doing in the customer line and things of that nature. So we've certainly seen a swell in the ability to kind of open up the back doors and clean up our infrastructure, make sure everybody that's working remote has what they need. And sometimes that's been a server upgrade or moving something into AWS or Azure, or going more cloud-based, providing a way to access some resource using the public-facing internet. So some of those older projects where we had wanted to kind of update the timekeeping system or update the some of our just sort of our in-house offerings, this has certainly been a time where we have the extra manpower by keeping most of our folks, and we're sort of putting them on some of that backlog of projects to attack. And I think when we come out on the other side of it, we'll be perfectly more agile, a lot more nimble as far as supporting folks at the drop of a hat, or really being able to offer top level support at 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us today, and thanks for your perspective on things. It's definitely interesting times we're in right now. And like I said, it's great to have IT leaders like yourself out there that are doing good things and supporting your folks. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Jeff. I appreciate your time, guys.
Yeah. And thank you guys as well. Everyone out there, stay safe, keep your hands clean, take care of yourself, take care of your families, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.